This conference will now be recorded.
Hi, good morning, everyone. So I think yesterday we have seen about multi-container, single container, and then we have seen containers and init containers as well. Okay. So today let us try to understand what is static pod, and then we will understand the flow, how when you send a request, what it will do, what your Kubernetes API server does in the background. Okay. So let us try to understand that. So coming to the point, static pod. So static pod is something which is not handled by your API server, means like it's not handled through API. So Kubernetes API. Let's say if I want to create a pod, now this particular static pod cannot be controlled or cannot be created or cannot be deleted with the help of Kubernetes API server. Okay, which means that if I try to create through kubectl, you cannot create through kubectl command. Okay, so that's how it is. So who will handle this? Okay, that's fine. I will not able to create from kubectl command. Okay, or my API server doesn't accept this kind of static pods creation. Then who will create and who will take care of this particular pod creation? So this will be controlled by kubelet service. Okay, you already know that every node will have the kubelet service running in the background. If you take an example, you can see that your let's say for example your control plane also will have a kubelet service running in the background, right? Kubelet service. Okay, so this is the service which will be running as a daemon on your nodes. Any node which you try to pick, whether it is a controller or whether it is a compute, whichever compute you want to check, you can just execute this command and you can see that there is a service running in the background. Okay, now, okay, so that's well and good. Now, how we can handle this? Okay, we have told that kubelet service will be running in the background, and that service will take care of handling this particular pods in the background. Okay, so how we can create? Let's say I have a requirement that I want to create a static pod. Okay, if you want to create a static pod, first of all, try to understand how your kubelet service is able to handle the static pod. Okay, for example, you already know that your Kubernetes services, the components are running as a pod. If you take an example, kubectl get pod hyphen n kube hyphen system namespace. If you try to see the pods in this namespace, you can see there is a etcd, API server, control manager, and then there is a proxy and schedulers and all, right? These pods are static pods. Okay, by looking at this, I may not give a justification, but there is some particular what do you say? What do you say? The naming convention. By naming convention, also we can understand that, but that is not a proof. Okay, naming convention in the sense I will tell you. You can see there is a name of the pod, the component hyphen node. This is a node name. Okay, so technically static pods does the same thing. Okay, your name of the pod, actually what you have written in the YAML file, hyphen, and on which node it is launched, which node it is handled, that will be the name which is added. So this will be the naming convention for static pods actually. So this is your static pod, this is your static pod, this is your static pod, and this is also a static pod. These four components are static pods in your Kubernetes control manager. Okay, how you can say that? You can see kubelet service is able to create this particular static pods because the YAML files of that particular static pods are exist here. Okay, if you see here, there is a directory called manifest. Okay, so go to that manifest. You will see the YAML files. Okay, so these are the YAML files which are helpful for you to create the pods. Okay, if you try to cat this particular file, let's say etcd.yaml, and if you try to see this information, it has a lot of information, right? If you try to scroll up and see, you can say this is a pod. Okay, and this is created. So this is a static pod. how it's getting created. Okay, so this is how it is. So to understand the concept, so this is how your static pods can be handled. Simple. Tell your kubelet that try to read the YAML file. If you have a custom location, say by default, if you place a YAML file here, it will create a pod for me, Kubernetes manifest, because kubelet service is already able to read this particular directory location. Okay. Now let's say if I want to add a new directory location, let's say I want to place my static, I want to create my static pods. Those static pods YAML files are present in a specific location. I want to place it. That specific location also my kubelet service has to read. Okay, in order to do that, first of all, you have to update your kubelet service saying that please, this is the directory, please try to read the YAML files from this location as well. You have to tell to your kubelet service. Okay, then once it is read, right, whatever the YAML files you place it over there, the static pod will get created. Okay, so let me try to pick my compute node, and then I will try to do there, because I don't want to do on control node. Let me try to pick my compute node, and then I will show you the step-by-step procedure how to create a static pod. And what will happen if I try to execute kubectl command for the static pods? Yes, it will get deleted. Okay, from your from your point of view, it will show you that it is getting deleted. But if you try to check again with the kubectl get pods command, again it will get recreated automatically. Okay, even though if you have deleted, command the control manager will come to know it, and control manager will give you the information to the kubelet service, and kubelet service will try to create that particular pod. Okay, so that is how it is. So that is all about static pods. Static pods, why we need it? Okay, we are creating a pods, right? Why again we need to have a static pods? There could be a situation where your application should be running. It should not be handled through kubectl command, so that someone could intentionally delete it, or someone could have unexpectedly or intentionally deleted that particular object on the Kubernetes cluster. I don't want that to happen. Okay, I want this particular applications to be secured and should be handled as a static pod in such a way that if someone tries to delete it, again it will get recreated, okay, automatically. So in those scenarios, if you have those kind of applications which are critical and which are important, you can handle through static pods. Okay, so which means that only one problem is, if that node is down, the pods will not get launched in anywhere. Okay, so do remember that, because your static file is present over there, right? So if the file is present on that particular node, and the pods will be created only on that particular node, that is one advantage. But the same disadvantage is for the same advantage is nothing but, if that particular node is down, you cannot handle that particular pod. Okay, so you have to create again a YAML file under whichever node you want, and then that's how the again the static pod will get created on that specific node. Okay, so it is specific binded to that particular nodes. Wherever you create in that particular node, only those particular pods will get running. Okay, so that's how we have to understand. So let us try to tell my kubelet service which is running on my compute node to say that please try to read this particular location as well. Okay, how will you handle that? So this is one of the CK exam. They might be giving you the location as well. They will tell you that this is the directory location and you have to create a static pod, and there will be a sample YAML file as well in that particular directory location, or they will tell you to create a YAML file. Okay, so that is how we have to do. So you have to follow these particular steps and carefully read the question when you are writing the CK exam, on which node they have told you. On that particular node only you have to do it. Okay, so that is the first and major important point when you're trying to create a static pod. Okay, in a hurry, or people might take do a mistake actually. Instead of doing on the specific compute node or something, they might do on the master node. Okay, because by default we log into the master node, right? So obviously they might do the mistakes. So read carefully, though you know the steps and how to do it and all, still there might be a mistake that doing on the wrong node. Okay, so coming to the point, here also you can see obviously kubelet service will be running, right? You can see this service is running. Okay, now I have to tell my kubelet service that I created a new directory. Please try to read the directory as well to create a static pods. So how I can intimate that? So the steps are written here in a proper way. So just you have to go through it. Static pods are managed directly by kubelet daemon on a specific node which I have told. Okay, first let's choose the node where to launch this static pod. So first of all, you have to decide on which node you want to launch this particular static pod. Okay, that is, these are the two major points that you have to remember always when creating the static pod. Okay, choose a directory and place the static pod YAML. Okay, so first of all, let me create a directory. Okay, so what I want to do, mkdir, okay, let's say under /etc, I want to create a directory called kubelet, kubelet.t. Almost it is kind of CK exam question actually, kind of. Okay, so I created this particular directory. Okay, so now this directory was available for me to handle this. Okay, there are no files under this, right? Now I'm not placing any YAML file right now. Though I specified here, I'm not placing any static file over here. What I want to do is nothing but, first of all, I want to update my kubelet service. How to do that? First, normal hints for everyone, okay, so that everybody can understand. This particular service is running in the background, was able to handle this with this particular command. Okay, it is running in the background and everything because there is a configuration file for this particular service to run. Okay, so that configuration file you can see here. Okay, let me try to open this and let me show you the basic things. You can see this is the file. Okay, now after this there is one more file as well which you can open and which you can just start it. Okay, so there is a file called, you can just open this particular file, service config file it is. Now let me try to, first of all, let me show you the permissions of it. You can see this particular file exists and this is allowed to be modified by only the root user. Okay, not by the group as well. Okay, and others doesn't have any permission to read or write. So this is the best practices. Okay, so always you have to see this particular configuration files. Obviously they will, but just have a look on this. Okay, so your service kubeadm, your kubelet service is having the kubeadm config file under this particular location, so you have to modify here. Okay, so just open this file. You have so many entries. Come to the last line where you can see that user bin kubelet service and all, right? So come to this particular location, go to the end. Okay, go to the end, and here what you have to specify is nothing but, you just need to specify pod manifest path and the path. Okay, just you have to give something like this. Just copy this. Okay, and go here, just try to paste it. Okay, the option is -pod -manifest -path equal to the directory path what you have used. So I'm telling to my kubelet service that please read this particular path as well. Okay, so that is what I'm saying. If you, in your case, if it is a different directory, then you have to specify that. In my case, I have created kubelet.d. Okay, so that's the reason I specified this. Once you have updated this, just save this file and come out. Okay, whenever you do some modifications of this particular file. Okay, and the next command what you have to execute is nothing but systemctl daemon reload. Okay, after that you have to restart your kubelet service. Okay, so systemctl restart kubelet. Okay, done. My changes are applied and I was able to do successfully. Okay, now what I have to do, just a second, sorry. So now what I want to do is nothing but, first of all, let me try to save a YAML file over there. Okay, this is, you can see this. Oh, sorry. If you give the left right arrow, you can see that your option has been loaded when your particular service is running in the background. You can see this pod manifest path equal to this. You can just verify this as well. When you're doing the examination, right, you have to be too fast so that you can understand. Okay, change the file. take the path, whatever it is there, see whether that path is really exist or not. If not exist, you have to create it in the examination. Once it is created, you have to come to this particular file, update the file with this particular option called hyphen pod manifest path is equal to that particular directory location. Okay, once it is specified, reload your daemon systemctl daemon reload, and after that you have to restart your kubelet service. Once these two things are done, check the status of your kubelet service and see whether this option is displayed or not. Okay, okay, in my case it's showing perfect, so it means that my kubelet service is ready to read this particular YAML file as well. Okay, now coming to the point, go back to your control node once again. What I want to show, what are the pods I have right now. tl get pods. I don't have anything in my default namespace, right? So I'm showing you the proof now. Okay, so go back to your, you can take this example or you can take any example. Okay, let me take this particular example right now. So let me take this example. Okay, copy, go to your compute plane. What is the path? /etc kubelet.d, and there you have to create your file. I don't have anything right now. Let's say nginx, okay, dot yaml. Okay, so I'm just placing it here. My role, see, roles and all these are not okay. Environment, let's say environment, let's say test dev environment. Okay. Let me try to do the indentation. There is some problem with the indentations. Let me try to correct that. Control Shift V, select the portions what you want to delete, then D. Okay. So the fine here also same thing. There is some indentation problem. Okay. Yeah. So API server, see, everything is same. See, nothing has been changed. Your YAML file, what you create for the pod is the same. Okay. The way of creating that particular object onto your Kubernetes cluster has been changed. Instead of handling through kubectl through the API server, now it is directly handled by your kubelet service itself. Okay. So just, you can see the name of the container and you can see the name of your pod as well. Okay. Static web. Okay, see the name static-web. So now I saved and came out. Okay, just wait and see here. Okay, name of your pod, you can see the naming of the pod. It is static-web hyphen, and it has shown you some particular additional name that is nothing but your node name, on which node it has been launched. That particular host name will be added as at the end. Okay, you can see it is running and you got the IP address. Did I created anything? No, right? You have seen it on live. So nothing has been done. Now if I try to curl this, I will get Nginx web page. That is for sure. It's working. Okay. Now I have told you that this particular resources, what you have created right now, resource in the sense objects. Technically now you can call it as object. Now the what are the object you have created right now? Can I delete? You might have thought as I like if I execute kubectl delete command, what will happen to this particular pod? Let's see. Okay. So kubectl delete, okay, pod static, right? If you want to delete all the pods in this particular namespace, you can give hyphen all as well. Okay, you can say that pod got deleted. Okay, now if you look at the age of this particular pod is like 5 seconds. Actually, I could have executed. Okay, but anyway, you can see now it got executed. Again, it got recreated. Did I deleted, right? You can see the status of this. It got deleted, but again it got recreated. You can see the IP address, it's the same IP address. Let me try to wait for some time and let me do the deletion once again. Now it is like 29 seconds, right? Let me try to delete this. I'll try to give something like name as well. Now you can see now the status 2 seconds ago. See, it is on pending. Why? Because it takes few minutes. Again, the advantage is like you got the same IP address. You got the same IP address for this. Okay. So this is how the static pods will be handled. Okay. Now, if you want to delete this, okay, now if you want to handle this particular static pod, I don't want this anymore. I just want to delete this static pod. Then how we can do? Go to the compute node, whichever node it is, go to that compute node, simply delete this particular file or create with some other different extension. Okay, let me try to do in a different way. Okay, now you can see this particular file has this particular extension. Okay, now let's go back to the compute controller pane. Let's try to execute this command. It's still running. How come? No, it should not be running. Let me try to remove the file at least. Okay, I created a backup. It's now this directory is empty, right? So let's see. You can see it's got removed. Okay, so this is how it is. Okay, so this is how you handle your static pods. Okay, static pods doesn't, you cannot control through kubectl command. It should be controlled only through kubelet service. Okay, which means that static pods are like that. Now till now you have created a generic pods. Okay, now when you're trying to create a static pod, please ensure first point is like decide on which node you want to launch. You need to go to that particular node, modify the config file of the service of your kubelet service, update the path like pods a manifest path. So then once you have updated, or if you want to utilize the default path, you can just utilize the /etc kubernetes manifest. Okay, it's up to you. Okay, even if you try to go to your compute plane, just a second, if you go to your compute plane, actually there is a file directory path called /etc kubernetes manifest. This directory was there and it is empty. Now let me try to create the same file under this particular path. Okay, let me re-update my what do you say, my service. Okay, so just let me explain this. Yeah, open this, modify this entry. I don't want this anymore. Let me try to utilize the default path as well. Okay, save this file, come out, systemctl daemon reload. You're updating your system D service, okay, with the changes, and then you have to restart your service as well, actual service. Done. Okay, now nothing was there, this directory cannot be read, or let me try to delete that particular directory as well. Okay, I deleted this particular directory right now. Okay, so I don't have this. Fine, let me try to place my YAML file under that particular location. So vi/etc kubernetes manifest, and then let's write nginx.yaml test.yaml. Okay, let me try to pick my data again, copy paste here. Then indentation issues, let me try to correct that. You have to be in escape mode. This you have to be visual block, and then you have to select the portion which you want to delete. Okay, this is a shortcut commands. Okay, so everything is done. Let it be like this as it is. I don't want to disturb this YAML file. Save this. Before saving this and coming out, okay, I've not saved it. Still the editor is open. Let me come back to my controller and let me show you the proof. I don't have anything. Okay, even here I have not specified on which namespace it should get created. Okay, so it should create a default namespace. I executed this command on the default namespace. I don't see any resource. If you want, you can execute for multiple times and see. Or you can watch it. Watch in the sense -w, it will show you the live output, okay? Nothing, right? So let's go here. Let's save this. If you see now, automatically this got created. You can see now in the background. You're watching this, right? Yeah. So it is in pending state. After that, again, it got created successfully, and you can see the status, it's running. Control C, just cancel that watch. You can see now this is running. Okay. So if you take this particular IP address, obviously this will show you the default Nginx page. Okay. So this is so which means that there are some default locations where kubelet service can read the static files actually, YAML files, which we call it as technically manifest in the sense the directory where you place your YAML files is called as manifest. Okay, it is not a what do we say, entity or something like that. It's just a naming convention. Okay, a manifest in this manifest directory in the sense what, if you place your bunch of YAML files in a single directory location, that is called as manifest. Okay, so don't get confused with the technical names. So this is how you can handle your static pods. So any questions in this? Any doubt or any questions that you have?
Sudhir,
Yeah,
uh, regarding the container pod that we have given, suppose
yeah.
when we build a image, we actually
Mhm.
expose the pod in the Docker file, right? So
Yes.
will this get overridden if we specify in the
No, no, no.
YAML
See,
file?
technically YAML file doesn't control your port numbers. It cannot control your services which are running inside. This is just to tell you that if you want to expose or if you want to, it does nothing actually. Okay, if you if you want to just open that port number, it is not from the YAML file. You have to do it in the Docker file itself. Okay, the
Mm,
customizations or the which port number you want to use. If you want to go with the default one, no need to modify anywhere. Okay, if you want to customize it,
okay.
first and foremost place which you have to modify is nothing but Docker file. Okay, that
Mm,
same port number you have to specify in your pod YAML file. That's it. It doesn't mean that if you specify in your pod YAML file with some port number, your container will listen with the same port number. No, not at all. It doesn't have any control to modify. It is only to just
okay.
say that this is the port number which will be opened or which will be used by the application. That's it. It is a metadata information.
Okay. So just for the documentation, even if you give a wrong number, also it doesn't matter, right?
It doesn't matter. If you want, you can give 22 or 25, 26 like that. But ultimately, your application will be listening on 80 port number. But when it
Uh,
comes into picture is nothing but, let's say you specified some host port below that. That host port
mm,
now will be binded to the port number what you have told in the YAML file. Okay. If you want, you can do like that. You first in the first YAML file we have discussed, right? Host port. Do you remember that?
y-
Let's say
yeah.
yes, sir. Okay. Let me go back this sample nginx, right? So what I have done there, where is that example? Yeah, in host port, let's say you specify like one which you want access from outside. Customize your container with some other port number and specify here a wrong port number and see what happens in the background. Can you access the application? Still, will this get binded to the port number what the actual container is using, or will it get binded to this particular port number what is specified in the YAML file? So can you please make a note of it and just try to do the thing experiment and let me know. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. You got the point, right, Shafi? What you're trying,
Yes.
like what I,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
yeah. In the Docker file, customize the port number. Here, specify a different port number apart from what you have customized. And now bind it and see if you're trying to access this host IP address and the port number, will you able to still access the port number? Sorry, application. That's well and good. So no need to specify this. If it is not, then see that. Okay. So this is what.
Okay.
So
And
yeah,
regarding the
yeah,
static ports, so
yeah,
he said static ports will be on a particular node, right?
yes,
So if the
yes,
node goes down,
yeah.
I mean, we
You
will not
cannot
be able to access the port. Yes.
obviously
Okay.
because
So
that node itself is not available. There is no YAML file itself. to launch your application, or to, there
Yes.
is no services running in the background. Let's say it is crashed due to some hard disk or something, it was crashed. So there is no way to platform to run your applications, right?
Oh, yeah. Yes. Okay. So in, let's say, in a real world scenario, what will be the scenarios where like you will be using the static pod?
Okay, so the best example is your Kubernetes components, right? For example, I'm saying this Kubernetes
Mm.
components are important for us. Okay, the components where they are running in the control plane node. Okay, in this control plane node, your static pods are created and they are placed in a proper location, and those will get created. Now if I remove that YAML files, what will happen? You will not at all access your Kubernetes cluster. Okay, let me show you one proof. I will do intentionally, I will do some mistake. Okay, if in those scenarios you have to modify your, you have to create a static pods. What could be the situation? Applications which are critical and which are really needed for my Kubernetes cluster, this application is mandatory, then only you have to create a static pod. Okay, which means that none of them should handle through API calls. API calls in the sense either through curl command, or through your kubectl command, or through dashboard. They should, the people should not control that particular applications from my API. They have to be controlled only by the administrator who has placed that particular files in a proper manifest location. Okay, those kind of applications you have to. It depends, from organization to, from client to client, this particular critical applications will change, right? So based on that you have to decide. The best example is your main Kubernetes components like etcd, scheduler, control manager, and API are running as a static pod. Why? Because these pods are important. If you don't have any one of the pod, your cluster is gone, like you cannot handle it, right? So that's the reason they have placed that particular YAML files in a proper location as a static pods. If someone has intentionally deleted it, again it will get recreated, right? So that's the reason. Now let me try to do intentionally some mistake and see what will happen. This might be helpful for your Kubernetes examination as well, CKA or CKS. Okay, so manifest, let's say I have kube API server. Okay, intentionally some mistake in the sense, uh, okay, I did some mistake. Okay, now I saved it and came out. I have not done anything. Okay, now let's execute kubectl get nodes. It will take some time. For example, let's say, okay, it is taking some time to get recreated. Why? Because you did some change, right? Obviously, what will happen? It will get recreated. Okay. So now, okay, let's assume that it is under recreation process. Okay, let us give some 2 to 3 minutes. Though the image is there, let's give some time now. What will happen? Let's see. See, it is not getting up. Okay. What is another way to verify whether your application is running or not? What is an alternative way? Okay, from kubectl get nodes, I was not able to execute any API calls. What is the next way? Do someone has some idea how to verify? I just want to see whether my API server is running or not. How?
Through namespace.
No, this is the namespace. See, okay, that's fine. Okay, you are not able to run API calls itself, then you cannot expect a response, right? Your main API server itself is not running. That's a major problem. How will you fix this? How will you identify? What is the next step to identify the error? Think.
Visit YAML file for manifest.
Sorry.
Visit manifest file, YAML file.
Okay, manifest file. You doesn't know the reason, right? Let's say you are
Mhm.
like you don't have any. Someone has did some mistake. Now today you logged into your cluster saying that someone has critical issue, saying that the cluster is not working. Then you logged in as an administrator. Then you have seen that you're not able to run the API calls. Okay, you have to give a justification. Like you have to see, right, why it went down. Identifying the issue, first of all, you have to know it, right? How will you come to know that? Simple. Your services, so no, systemctl commands, no. See, as I already told, these are running, these services are, these components are running as a pods, not as a daemon. Only kubelet service will be running as a daemon. Okay. Now, first thing is like you have to see it as a container, whether the container is up and running or not. Okay. See, it is creating a container, right? API server is a container. So what you have to do, Docker ps -a pipe grep API server. First, see what happened to that. Nothing, it's not running. Sorry, API server. Nothing, right? If you check with Cube, there are so many containers are running, but you can see the control manager is exited or something happened. So many things have happened, right? Your API server, it's not coming up. Okay, then you have to go to your YAML file and just verify it, what went wrong or something like that. Okay, it's not that directly you can say give a justification saying that something went wrong or something has not come up, something like what mistake has been done. So that you will come to know only once you have your API server is coming up or something like that. Okay, so then go to the manifest file. Okay, first you have to see whether the container itself is not created. So which means that then you have to go to your YAML file and see what happened. Okay, so kubectl sorry /etc kubernetes and then manifest and then kube API server. So when you're analyzing this, then you came to know that okay, someone has unintentionally done this particular changes here. They forgot to give the indentation properly with some hyphen. Okay, so then you are trying to correct it, right? So then you corrected it and then you have saved this particular file and came out. Okay, now let's wait and see. Now you can see the API server came up. You can see that, right? So API server, this container is up and you can see up status is 4 seconds. So which means that now I will be able to execute the kubectl commands. Kubectl get nodes. You can see it is successful. So this might be one of the interview, maybe interview or maybe CK exam or CKS exam. You might fall into this particular situation as well. Okay. So this is how it is. So always be careful with this particular YAML files. Can we define static pods and control plane? Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Okay. But when you're trying to create a static, when you're creating normal pods through kubectl command, you cannot launch on the control plane. Why? Because there is a taint applied on this particular node. Okay. I'll tell you what is a taint and you have to understand what is a taint and toleration. It comes under a topic called scheduler. Okay, scheduling the pods. So it comes under that particular topic actually. Why? Because we have so many types. Okay, a node name, node selector, node affinity. Okay, we have pod affinity, anti affinity, and then we have taints and toleration. So we have totally 6 topics. So these 6 topics comes under scheduling. Okay, how to schedule your pods on a specific node. So this comes under that particular topic. Okay, so any other questions apart from this? No. Okay, thank you. So let's go to the next one. Let's try to understand the next scenario is like how. Okay, I was able to create a containers, everything is fine. How my API server is accepting this particular request? What is the flow? If someone like you might come across an interview or somewhere, they might ask you what is a flow. Okay, when you send a request, whether through API call, API request can be from CLI, from the GUI, or from the curl command what you execute. Okay, any API request. First API header, like it will come and it will verify. First your API server will do what it does. It will authenticate and authorize. First it will verify who you are. Who you are in the sense, who are you? Okay, so it will just verify whether the username password is correct or not, or whether the certificate based authentication. There are different types of authentications actually. You can do a username password based authentication, certificate based authentication, and token based authentication. Okay, right now whatever the kubectl commands which I'm executing is using certificate based authentication. Okay, so it will verify whether this certificate is valid or not for this user. It will verify with the API server and it will give you a response. Okay, Once authentication is done, it will verify the authorization. Authorization in the sense what? Though you are allowed to log in, it doesn't mean that you can do everything, right? You might have some restrictions, which is called as authorization. Okay. Technically in Kubernetes, it is called as RBAC. We will apply rollback access control to the users. So users or whatever it is, we will apply rollback access control for users, groups, and service account actually. So it will verify, okay, whether what permissions you have, everything it will verify. Once this is done, then you don't have any mutation. Forget about this and this, okay. Then it will go to the object schema and it will verify. Well, let's say you are trying to create a pod. For that pod, what should be the minimum required things in the YAML file to create that particular object? It will verify, okay, whether API server is written properly, kind, metadata, name, and then spec, container section, everything was written in a proper way. It will verify that schema. Once the schema was validated, it will go and it will save the data in the etcd. Okay, so these are the four major steps which you have to remember when you're trying to create a pod or any resource, any object which you're trying to create on your Kubernetes cluster. These are the four major steps which will happen. Mutation and validation, it is a different topic. Let me try to explain later. Okay, I don't want to go in depth right now because we are in the early stage of Kubernetes. Okay, so that's the reason. So this is how it is. So this is all about your stages, how your etcd will work on when you're trying to create a object on your Kubernetes cluster. Header verification, headers verification, and then your API's request will have the headers and footers, like headers, right? So that will be verified as per the API. Then authentication and authorization, object schema validation, and then storing the data in the etcd. Okay, so that is how it is. So these stages are important for us. And then in the pod, we have different types of containers patterns actually. We have sidecar pattern, adapter pattern, ambassador pattern, which means that based on the responsibility of your containers, they have given some naming convention actually. Sidecar, adapter, and ambassador pods. Okay. I technically say that it is not that mandatory to understand, or not, sorry, not to understand actually, not to concentrate too much on these types of applications or patterns of containers which you are creating. But we will see what is this exactly, what it does. I think it is, this is already covered, which is nothing but sidecar pattern in the sense one application will serve the data and one application will inject the data. Okay, sending the logs to someone. Let's say this is a container, application container. This might have some logs, access logs and error logs. Those will be shared in the volume. That volume, from that volume, it will pick your sidecar, in the sense the other container which is running in the same pod will pick the data from that particular location and it will send it to someone like your log editor or something like that. It will go, it will send that information to that particular big bucket, or let's say S3 bucket or something like that. Okay, so it will try to send the data over there to store the logs. So this responsibility of this container is different and responsibility of this container is different. Okay, but ultimately this approach is called a sidecar pattern approach. Okay, sidecar pattern approach. There is one more approach which is called as adapter. Adapter in the sense, this is your application and there is one more container which is running here. Okay, so now external monitoring service is something where which will try to fetch the data from this particular container, adapter container. What it does, whatever it is needed to understand by your monitoring tool externally, it will try to modify your data of this particular container data by this particular container. So let's say this container is writing some format. Okay, but your external what is a monitor cannot understand that. So what this container will do, it will reframe that particular log pattern into a proper way so that that can be understood by your external monitor service. So that particular specifications creation is called as adapter pattern. Okay, sidecar pattern, and then we have adapter pattern. Okay, based on the behavior only they have given this naming convention, but it's not, okay, it is not mandatory that you have to tell, okay, sidecar container it is, adapter container it's no, just try to understand what is the concept, that's it. Okay, and then we have ambassador pattern. what it does, this is your pod and this is your application, needs a database connection. Let's say you have external database where it is sitting somewhere. Okay, for production you have a separate database, and then you have a testing for that you have a separate database in your data center, or you have another database. Okay, now I don't want to expose this particular applications to my container, this container. So what I will do, I will use a proxy container. For this particular container, I will be using a proxy container to bypass the information to this particular nodes to fetch the data of your database. So this is called as ambassador pattern. Okay, so these are the three different patterns. For all of them, I have some examples, which is in my, as per my knowledge, I have just created the examples for this three kinds of patterns actually. I feel that we will see at the last day of our uh, pod related topics. Okay, this one and this ephemeral. This we will see on the last day. Why? Because this is not important for us to get continued with the next topics. Okay, so that's the reason we'll put it later. Now, so hope you understood what is sidecar and what is ambassador and what is adapter. So this documentation I will give you the PDF format so you can just read it. Okay, so it is well documented. I think this is more than enough for a like newcomers to understand this particular topics. Okay, so what is the next that I have to do? Let me try to deploy some application, right? So now you know what are the things that are needed to create a pod, to install, to run your application on your Kubernetes cluster. So let's go with your Jenkins. You already know about Jenkins. Why can't we go with Jenkins installation with your pod? Okay, pod approach. So we are using a pod approach to create our Jenkins application on the Kubernetes cluster. I need to do some modifications in this YAML file. Before that, let me try to do a cleanup. Cleanup in the sense, let me remove this file. This is no longer needed for me because I cannot handle from there, right? It is a static pod, so I have to come back here. So that is what I did. Now let me execute this. I hope this pod got deleted. Sorry, not this. kubectl get. Oh, right. So it got deleted. Let me try to create another pod. Let's say jenkins.yaml. So I want to do slight modifications here. This is not, we need to use mtdr, right? So that's the reason. pdydir. Okay, done. Resources, I just gave it, okay, 1 GB and all. So this is not needed right now for me. I'll remove this as well because we have not even covered the topic, right? So that's the reason. Okay, this is parallel to this, so this should be fine. And here also the container. So in order to access this particular Jenkins, obviously since we have doesn't know any other topic in Kubernetes, so we know only that thing is host port, which means that the container port 8080 port number will be binded to the node 8091 port number on whichever node it is getting launched. Okay, so that I can access my Jenkins dashboard through the node IP address and the port number called 8091 to access my application. Okay, remember we are trying to create a volume. The volume which is present inside the path of a container is where Jenkins underscore home. This is the directory where all the Jenkins related information will be stored inside the container. Now this one you are mounting it to the volumes mtdr section on that particular node, which means that you can see the information of your Jenkins in that particular path as well, where lib, kubelet, pods, and then the pod id slash volumes slash that particular directory and the data. Okay, so this is how it is. Simple application with Jenkins CI/CD we are trying to deploy it. So kubectl create. See, this is not the final approach. This is only with the knowledge what we have right now on Kubernetes. We are trying to create with that knowledge only. We are trying to launch our application Jenkins on this particular Kubernetes cluster. We will do so many modifications in deploying this Jenkins later in the topics. Let's verify. It may take some time. Why? Because image has to be downloaded. Since we are doing for the first time on this Kubernetes cluster, it will take some time to create. Okay, let's wait. If you want to watch this, just give this W, then it will show you. Oh, it's already running. Then well and good. So it's running fine now. So how I can access now? Go to the page, pick the public IP address of this particular compute node. I know that it will launch on compute. So go there and 8091. You can see it's able to. I got initial admin password. So which means that I'm able to communicate, right? How we can know that particular password, like initial admin password? Simple. You already know about this. No need to repeat once again. Logs, pod logs, right? So Jenkins hyphen CI/CD. I have only one pod, say one container inside the pod. So no need to specify the container name. Obviously, I'll get the data from that container. Take this password, go there and copy paste here. Continue. So install suggested plugins. So that is what I do. So since I'm using GCP account, right, it took less time to download that image. So maybe that's the reason. So creating that faster. Here also it will take less time, I guess. Meanwhile, if you have any questions, you can come up with the previous topics when you're practicing or something.
Sudhir,
Yes.
Yes, if.
go ahead, Shafiq. No issue.
Yeah, it's okay. So go ahead, please.
I always get confused between create and apply. Matlab, is there any specific where we have to use create, where we have to use
Okay.
apply?
Create is just when you want to apply the, so like let's say if you want to create an object onto your Kubernetes cluster, whatever the object it is, it can be a pod, it can be a namespace or anything. When you want to create, generally technically we use kubectl create. Apply also does the same thing. Okay, if you have a YAML file, when you execute kubectl apply and -f and the YAML file, it will create an object on your Kubernetes cluster. Now, what is the difference? Okay, when I was able to create the object using create and apply, so what is the major difference between these two? The thing is simple. When the resource is not available, then technically we can use both the commands when you're creating for the first time. But when the resource is already available and there are some slight changes which you want to apply, you did some changes meanwhile in the YAML file, which are allowed, I'm saying, which can be allowed or which are allowed to modify the changes you have done in the YAML file. Now you want to apply to the existing resource on existing object which you have already created. Okay, then
Okay,
you cannot use a create. You have to use apply. Okay.
okay, clear. Thanks, Sudhir.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, my question was,
Yes, should be.
see, in the VM that you created in the GCP, so when you do
Okay.
a IPA, it will list down the network interfaces as well,
Only
right?
private IP.
So it
It will
is,
list only private IP.
yeah, okay. So it is using ENP S04 interface. Whereas when we created an Oracle VirtualBox, the VM, it was ENP
It depends.
S03. So is it?
Yeah, it depends on ISO. Okay, the how the ISO was
No.
designed, based on that only the naming conventions will be there. In older, like same I'm using in 20.04 in my virtual machine, right? I'm using the base ISO which is given from the official documentation. It will give
Yeah.
me ENP0S3, then it will give me ENP0S8. Why not 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? It is designed like that, okay, to create some segregation or something like that. And then if you come to this particular, we are using the ISO which is provided by GCP account. Okay, then that ISO has some customization. So that's the reason you will see something like ENS0, ENS1, ENS2, like that. Okay, if you look carefully
Okay.
in the logs of the var logs or boot logs, you will understand it will try to modify. Somewhere in the logs you can see it is renaming that particular interface name. You can see the logs actually. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. These all are customizations, that's it. It's almost done. Last plugin is, yeah, it's done. You know this, right? Once we create this file will be no longer available. So this file will get deleted automatically. Okay, this is only for initial setup. So now let me try to create something like Subir. I'm using the username as a password itself. Gmail.com. Okay, then save and continue. Okay, then save and finish, and then start using Jenkins. My Jenkins is deployed successfully on my Kubernetes cluster. It's up and running. I can create my what do you say, items like nothing but a jobs I can create for the first time. I can integrate my nodes, slaves, whatever I want, I can do it. Same as it is. What you did in the container level, it's the same in the Kubernetes also. It uses the same containers, obviously, but you know now you know how to deploy through Kubernetes as well. But this is not the final phase of deploying the accurate way of Kubernetes on the cluster. There are some modifications which we have to do, but right now we know only this particular topics. Only we know pod, right? We know nothing else. So that's the reason we, with that particular mindset, we have created the application on that particular cluster. Okay. So take the same YAML file example, try to modify this as per changes what I've done, and remove these resources which are not needed. Okay. So we have used an image called Jenkins colon LTS. You can use either LTS or just hyphen LTS hyphen JDK 11 as well. Both are accepted. Okay. So this is how we can deploy. In similar way, we can deploy MySQL, Nginx. We already know. We can deploy other applications as well. We will see later. Okay. So tomorrow's topic may be on Monday. So the Monday the topics will be on volumes. Volumes in the sense we have seen different volumes types which we have defined here, right? So we will try to understand what are the other volume types that are accepted that can be defined in this volume section. You know only about mtdr. What is the problem with this mtdr? Which means that if you delete your pod, all the data which is stored in this particular volume will get wiped out. That is a problem, which means that now this is an ephemeral storage for us. If I want a persistent or something like the data should be available for me to do analysis or something I want to have. So then we need to follow a host path, and then we have NFS. So other examples as well. Okay. So let me try to explain what is this volumes, and then we will discuss about each and every type. Okay. On Monday. That is a topic for Monday. And then we will understand downward API as well. What is this exactly? This comes under volume section only. In the volume section only, again you can see we are using a different concept called downward API. What does it mean? Okay, why is this helpful for us in what situations? Okay, so these are the topics which will be covered on Monday. Okay,